Taylor Jenkins Reid's The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I mean, it's not just a book, right? It's become this cultural phenomenon, dominating bestseller lists and basically all of our social media feeds for years. But what happens when the hype dies down a little? Well, that's when a much more interesting, more critical conversation really starts to take shape. So what is it about this story of an old Hollywood superstar that just grabbed millions of us and didn't let go? And maybe more importantly, what do we find when we start to look past all that glamour and really dig into how the novel is built and what it's trying to say? And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? On one hand, you've got this incredibly popular, super emotional story that so many people love. But on the other, you have some really sharp analysis from readers and critics who are pointing out some major cracks in that glamorous facade. So today, we're going to unpack both sides. First things first, let's talk about the Evelyn Hugo phenomenon. Before we jump into the criticism, we have to understand why this book is so beloved. What are the key ingredients that made this thing a literary sensation? It doesn't matter if you're looking at formal reviews or just passionate reader discussions online, the same points of praise pop up again and again. You've got this powerful heroine who is anything but simple, a setting that's both dazzling and, let's be honest, pretty predatory, and a story that isn't afraid to tackle big ideas about who we are and what we're willing to sacrifice. This quote here from Literary Elephant just nails it. The book's incredible power is totally anchored in its main character. Evelyn isn't just a protagonist, she's a force of nature. She's admirable for sure, but sometimes she is absolutely terrifying. And that brings us right to Evelyn herself. It's this flawed, formidable woman who really elevates the novel from a good story to something truly special. She's the engine of the entire plot, and honestly, understanding her is the key to understanding the book's massive appeal. Evelyn is pretty much the dictionary definition of a morally gray character. She does some really terrible things, but often for reasons that you can kind of get. She's a victim and a manipulator, a survivor and a user, all at the same time. And that complexity is exactly why we can't look away. She makes us question our own simple ideas of what's good and what's bad. And her complexity isn't just for show, it's built on these deep layers of compromise and survival. As analyses from places like SparkNotes and The Independent point out, she literally erases her Cuban heritage to get famous. She has to hide her true love for Celia St. James just to survive in a deeply homophobic time. And she endures horrific abuse, which then fuels this ruthless ambition to take control. Each layer just adds to this absolutely unforgettable character. Okay, but as popular as the book is, it's not without its critics. Once you start digging into reader forums and more critical reviews, you start to see some of the same questions about the story's execution pop up. And right here, this is the main tension you'll find in the criticism. While pretty much everyone agrees that Evelyn is a masterpiece of a character, the narrator, Monique, gets a very different reaction. A lot of readers feel she's just too passive, like she's just a human tape recorder for Evelyn's story. And that's a big deal, because if your narrator doesn't feel active, the stakes for the whole present-day storyline can feel surprisingly low. And the critiques don't just stop with Monique. Readers also point to a certain convenience in the plot. For some, Monique's sudden career jump just feels totally unearned. For others, some of Evelyn's most important relationships don't feel quite fleshed out. And that huge plot twist at the end? For many, the reveal connecting Evelyn to Monique's dad felt a little too neat, a little too contrived, and it kind of undercut the emotional punch it was going for. So this brings us to a really fascinating question. If some of the book's key plot points feel a bit shaky, why does it still resonate so deeply with so many people? Maybe the answer is that the plot isn't really the main point at all. And this is where we get to the real soul of the novel. Because the title might say The Seven Husbands, but the book's true power, the reason it hits so hard despite any flaws, lies somewhere else entirely. The key idea here is marriage as performance. For Evelyn Hugo, marriage is rarely about love. It's a weapon, it's a shield, it's a costume she puts on. It's the main tool she uses to control her own story in a world that is dead set on writing it for her. As this analysis from SparkNotes points out, every husband serves a very specific purpose in the grand production of Evelyn Hugo. Their roles are everything from creating a scandal to looking stable for the cameras, but their most important job is to provide cover for her one true hidden love, Celia St. James. And when you look at it this way, as the Lighthouse Writers Workshop suggests, the whole book just transforms. It's no longer a story about a bunch of failed romances. It becomes a story about a journey to self-acceptance. The husbands are just signposts on Evelyn's road as she learns to survive, to discover who she really is, to protect that identity at all costs, and then finally to claim her own truth. So, after weighing the massive popularity against some of these valid critiques, where does that leave us? What is the ultimate truth of Evelyn Hugo's story? At the end of the day, the book's power doesn't come from a perfect plot. It comes from a theme that is so powerful and so resonant. Evelyn Hugo's entire life is one long battle for narrative control. And to be the one and only author of her own story, she sacrifices relationships, her heritage, and even pieces of her own soul. The real question the book leaves us with is, what is the price of that control? And that's the question that really sticks with you, long after you've put the book down. Evelyn presents her version of events as the definitive truth, but her entire story is built on manipulation, on secrets, and on very carefully crafted images. It forces you to wonder if any single truth can ever really be pure, especially when a life is lived so much in the public eye. It's a powerful, lingering question about fame, about memory, and about the stories we tell ourselves.